The premise of Dungeon Meshi feels so absurd to me, and I love it, and I think it reveals something about the meaning of life. Ignore this intro stuff or whatever, and you get to these characters fantasy adventuring, you know how it is. They're in a dungeon, and they fight a dragon, and they lose. They get destroyed, and this guy's sister gets eaten. It's so bad that after escaping, multiple party members leave, and it's just these 3 fools left. But they have a quest, they have a purpose. They need to save this guy's sister before she gets digested in the dragon's stomach. But as they're going through the dungeon, they have to stop to get food. And since they're broke and in a dungeon, they have to keep taking time to make delicious meals out of all the creatures they encounter. And then they start taking more time to make meals out of specific stuff because they're curious what it'll taste like. And it's this guy too. He's the one who's weirdly obsessed with this. Like, dude, your sister is getting digested in a dragon's stomach. There's this other manga that my sister accidentally got me for Christmas instead of Witch Hat Atelier, this thing called The Witch and the Night Will Survive, which was cancelled after 3 volumes. I read it, and I can see why people didn't like it. The manga sets up a lot of stuff that could be legitimately interesting. This supernatural plague kind of thing that killed a bunch of people, witch powers, kingdom, politics, and world building, and it's very meticulous in displaying what's important for these people to survive. A bit too meticulous, as we keep spending way too much time just thinking about food, how to get food, how to cook the food, how the food tastes, and then there's this weird fixation on the witch girl repeatedly using her powers and accidentally making the food taste like shit. This food stuff clearly matters to the author, but it comes off more as like a boring distraction because the story has really set up all this other stuff as more important, whereas in Dungeon Meshi, the food is like comically more important than anything else. We know they're somehow gonna make the most delicious looking meal ever out of whatever monster they encounter, no matter how long it'll take, no matter how much of a distraction it might be from what the main focus could have been. Sorry, Marcel, the cooking montage will happen. There's like a weird primal feeling to it, fighting for your life against various beasts and then cutting them up and consuming them afterwards. These same monsters have been giving you trouble for years and you hate their guts? Well, guess what? You can kill and eat them. But then that primal brutality almost is balanced out by this really sophisticated feeling to the dishes they prepare, the long process it takes to make the food from the dead monster to the end result. It's a very unique form of world building too. I'm always impressed by the apparent thought that was put into figuring out how you would cook these fantasy creatures. And then also balancing against the primal aspect of everything, it portrays this calming and connective feeling of eating a meal with a group of friends really well. The characters all bring different things to the table with different preferences and whatnot, but as a group they have this really special and wholesome chemistry that feels a lot more realistic than what I'm used to seeing in anime. Something about the way they make fun of each other especially. Like, a character will say something kind of weird without realizing, and then the others will call it out, but it's in a way that's clear. It's not really a strain on the relationship or anything. Like, there's this moment in the first episode where Marcel says she's fine with anything, but then she rejects a bunch of food ideas and Laios and Chilchuk look at her like this. It's like friendly annoyance, maybe I can call it. And there's also this part. After remarking that they wouldn't have gotten their ghost holy water treasure bug ice cream if his sister hadn't gotten eaten, Laios' friendship with the others wasn't ended immediately, even though they react negatively. I don't really know exactly how to put this into words other than by saying I've seen this exact kind of interaction with my friends so many times, and credit goes to the voice actors just as much as the writing for conveying this. And of course, there's the beautiful feeling of slowly growing closer with the people around you. At the start, these characters really aren't all close friends or anything. 2 members of the gang left immediately at the start, and Senshi is just some random guy they found. But you really do feel them slowly get closer over time in little moments like episode 2, where there can be wholesome moments of understanding, friends expressing their genuine care for Marcel after she was feeling more and more useless the entire episode. This wonderful friendship makes the fact that they find time to slow down and have a good meal even more important. If they sped things up, that would prevent them from having a good time, having a lot of good times. And what's the point of achieving some far off goal if you can't eat a good meal with your buddies on the way? Humans are supposedly set apart from other animals by our increased mental capacity for reason, but we are still animals, and because of that, we have needs and desires as humans that come from both parts, the rational part and the animal part. I think Aristotle wrote about this. I'm not the one coming up with this idea. To live the best possible life, it's probably good to learn about stuff that you're interested in and develop a greater knowledge and understanding of the world in the process, but most people can't be fulfilled just through introspection and studying like in a dumb bitch Plato video way. Physical experience has importance, both because it is helpful for truly learning a lot of things, like we see in the flashback with Marcel and Falin, but also there's a beauty to it on its own, even with what we might call more simple pleasures. We have to remember that the so-called animal part of ourselves has to be fulfilled as well for us to enjoy life. I would say I'm someone who often forgets the importance of those simple pleasures. I think I tend to get tunnel vision on like the most significant possible goals, stressing over how what I'm doing during the day is contributing to my eventual full self-actualization rather than on enjoying the little things. I'm kind of doing that right now by writing this script instead of learning songs on the piano. Sometimes I forget to eat until I start feeling dizzy. I can't even just sit down and enjoy Dungeon Meshi without trying to figure out what the point of it all is. But something about it that I've latched onto is that in a kind of oddly funny way, it reminds us that even when we have important stuff to do, it's still okay to take a breather and take time to enjoy something as simple as a good meal with friends. Not just okay, but maybe even good, maybe even important to do so. Dungeon Meshi looks death in the face and plays upbeat music in response. Whenever I really enjoy a story like this, I find myself picking it apart, trying to find out what the point of it is, what extra meaning or inspiration I might be getting from it to push myself forward in real life. I don't really know if there's a single unifying point that I've gotten out of Dungeon Meshi, at least not yet. More like a large assortment of various good vibes. Funny, wholesome, aesthetic, exciting, almost like I'm sitting at the dinner table with a large group of friends, listening to the multiple different conversations around me veer off to wildly different places while I get a taste of the different foods in front of me. Lots of different feelings and sensations connected not by all pointing to the same center, but by the simple fact that they're all kinda nice. And so something that I can take away from Dungeon Meshi is the feeling that sometimes that's all I need.